2 p.m. on the 10th of January. And I do remind you that we are being, our video recorded and live broadcast. So, Jane, could you start?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm going to quickly get through my updates. During this last month, we've had a number of holidays, so there has been a little bit of delay in terms of new information to report. With that said, I am meeting with GHD tomorrow, and we will be reviewing two different updates. One is the updates to technical memos 3 and 4. They are still working on revisions and were pushed back from other work that they were engaged with, but we will be discussing the comments that were provided to them, and then we will be preparing for a presentation to the work group, and then soon after that with the Board of Selectmen. So that will hopefully pave the way for recommendations in our wastewater planning efforts. Last month, we did have an opportunity, Cape Cod Commission, our consultant GHD, also our new consultant that will be on board evaluating the PRB technology for us, and the Cape Cod National Seashore met to discuss the functions of the septic system at Salt Ponds Visitor Center. As you know, that was a component of our watershed planning initiatives to improve the function there. And indeed, I think it was an enlightening exercise for the seashore when the technical operator of the system informed the seashore that they actually were exceeding permit by 3 times, actually, the allowance in their permit, meaning that the system is not performing to the levels that were originally permitted, which was, by today's standards, would not even meet the minimum. So there's definitely improvements to be made there, which is a good thing. And I think scientists there are all on board with our plan and the different components of it. So George Hoyfelder was there, who is the expert from Barnstable County, working as a sort of a third-party advisor to the seashore, offered some technical assistance. We brainstormed about some immediate actions that might be taken and looked at short and long-term options in that regard. So that was a very productive meeting, and I was very, very appreciative of the Cape Cod National Seashore staff, all of them, including George Price, who I can't say enough good things about. The Cape has been blessed by his presence. He's been a leader and steward of all things that I've been involved with him, and to that end, he'll be missed. So he will be replaced in that position in March. So we will be dealing with a new administration. I know that dealing with the park administrator and the lead scientist there, that we're all on board with these improvements and want to see the end result obtained, which is the improvement in Salt Pond water quality. So that was the aspect of the Salt Pond Visitor Center.
Jane, I'm not certain I got what you said right before that. You said that GHD reviewed something about the PRBs?
Well, GHD is our wastewater consultant.
Yeah.
They're working on 2 different aspects of our planning initiative, the watershed planning process, and also they will be the lead on the PRB grant that we received. And so they'll be pulling together the subcontractors as the lead contractor. It's just in government, it's easier for us to proceed like that, rather than us try to pay the individuals. So we're meeting tomorrow, so I can hopefully give you more substantial updates next time. And in terms of the landfill, there is a lot of activity going on in terms of process and additional hookups and so forth within the mandatory study area, where it's required that homeowners hook up to the municipal water supply, but there's also activity outside now at this point. So this is great. They're really, working through the learning curve of the system and so forth. We have had a number of people come forward to request well conversions, and we are reviewing them basically as variances, one by one. So this is a huge workload on our part. And we've established criteria to do this systematically. And so we've had over 115 come forward. I would just in general say about 50% of those met all the approval requirements for the variance, so those were approved. About, I'd say 20 were denied for reasons of scientific merit, and we have a number that need additional information. So we are moving ahead, and, I don't think we're delaying the process. Certainly, we're not delaying hookups or anything in that regard. So things are moving along, and it's been pretty busy. Related to the pond remediation, I know that Adele wrote some draft correspondence for homeowners and so forth. I've given her my comments. And I did hear back from our pond expert, our limnologist, Liz Moran, who commented on the original proposal that we had from Solitude. So I'm going to be integrating her comments and sending the proposal back to the consultant for changes. So, and then we'll see what comes. So we'll be in a good position for the spring. So that looks like that can all work out. So that's pretty much where we are at this point in time. We have had some setbacks in terms of software in the health department. We've been working off of a database, which was basically an access database. I had initially received a grant to develop, and that's more than probably 12 years ago. It was built off of Access 2003, so that was a while ago. And we knew it was, going to reach an end point of usefulness, let us say. So we have had some issues with it. We are no longer able to download data from the county. The county had a computer crash, and now the connection between the two entities, which we had developed as part of that grant, are disconnected. So we can't download data. I'm looking into trying to get this problem resolved, but the county is in the midst of some administrative changes itself. They need software improvements and a new computer system in the laboratory, so I'm not sure where they stand in terms of being able to assist us and/or aid us in that regard. So we're going to see where that lands. And that also impacts, although it's ways out, the nitrate screening program, because we get this test done cheaply because basically we take on half of the workload. We provide them the bottles and then we do the reporting. Well, I can't send out the reports unless I have computer downloads with the data, because you can't enter it manually. So we have some software issues to resolve. And, but that's not, we'll find a workaround, and, there has been a commitment on the town's part to develop alternative software platforms, but we've been so invested in the water program and all of the permitting and process that goes into that has taken all of our staff time, and we just don't, we haven't been able to move forward on all fronts. So I guess the good news is, we will just keep trying to figure out how to fix the lame duck, if you will, and then move forward with something better in the future. And on the environmental planning, and like I said, within the next 6 weeks, I hope to bring more progress to the table. And also, I have some sort of things I'm doing in conjunction, one with Boston University. I've been asked to sort of participate and in a risk communication class that's offered to some graduate students there. So Wendy Heiger-Bernays, who is a toxicologist that helped us out years back, is now asking basically for us to bring our community experience to this graduate school. And so I will be participating with Boston University and doing those presentations next week and then again in April. And also I've asked Laurel Schrader, I haven't heard back from her yet, to come down and we would do an update not only on groundwater contamination due to sources like the landfill, but also from other emerging contaminants that she has expertise in, and also team that up with George Heufelder in work he's been doing on the base in pilot studies for nitrogen treatment. So I'm hoping to package that all together and this maybe next month. And so that's where we are.
Have you had a chance to look at the nitrate revision?
I did. I have some edits for it.
Okay, but they're just edits, it's not a major problem with it.
Yeah, I didn't, there were some, not just like wordsmithing, but some of the context of it, I don't actually agree with.
Okay.
So, we could go over that. I don't know if you want to just go over that. Maybe I can take time with you, Adele, or...
Yeah,
Okay.
we're coming up 2:15, and
Yeah,
and I
I
know
have
you
a
need to
doctor's
leave.
appointment, I'm
All
sorry.
right.
I was going to suggest that the two of you talk between now and the next meeting,
Okay,
and,
Yeah.
sure.
And we could do that by phone or...
yeah,
or-
okay.
Okay?
That's good.
I will be in, for the rest of the week, I have a meeting in Barnstable with the wastewater team,
Okay.
but I'd be happy to take time and talk to you about that.
Jane, thank you for
Okay,
that
you're welcome.
information
Sorry.
about going forward with Tech Memo 3 and 4. I think you said basically sometime in the next 6 weeks.
Well, I would hope, after we talk with them tomorrow, after I talk with them tomorrow, we would get something final. And they were hoping next week to get us something final. I think the way I would do it is bring it back to that work group that initially sat down and provided the comments, and then bring it back to the larger group. And we're already basically working on some of the aspects in the hybrid plan, so
Good.
hopefully.
Fine.
Thank
That's Jane, I think we're there. You can see that I have Tech Memo 3 and 4 on the agenda, but let's just say, okay, that rolls over to next month. So
Scott, could you, one of those over here, please?
so we're
Sure.
okay on that. Let's see, Adele, I have as high priority for us to talk about today is the letters going to the abutters, but perhaps without Jane being here,
No, she gave me her comments.
okay.
They're mainly editorial, another aspect, yeah, breaking sentences, site visit, improve water quality in Salt Pond, okay. They don't change, I mean, there's some changes to say something a little bit differently, working on, I had curing the runoff from Park Street. She thinks scenario to reduce the runoff is better. I mean, they're all fine with me, but at least it's the basic letters the way they are. I can put them up if anybody wants to see them again.
Adele, I'm comfortable with what you've written, and I think it's good that you and Jane have connected on them, because she probably has a sharper eye and for some of the underlying details that go on there. So to me, I think the next step is that we would come up with drafts that would be shown to the Board of Selectmen, or at least announce to them that this was our intent to send out both letters to respond to the action.
Okay. Well, I can do that in time. They meet again next Monday. You probably could ask to be put, I think they meet on Monday. This schedule's gotten a little confused, and I'm a little
Martin Luther
confused.
King Day, this Monday coming up?
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah,
so
no.
they're meeting on the 17th.
Yeah, it'll be the one.
That's why, as I said Monday, I knew something's wrong.
no
What is
good on
wrong
Monday.
here? They're meeting on the
Wednesday.
17th. So probably you should ask now to be put on their agenda for the 17th,
Yes.
because these things, it's been a while. So I would put together a package of, do you want to sign these letters, Charles? Is that how you want them set up?
I certainly could sign them. I don't need to be displacing anyone else who would otherwise be signing them. But if it needs a signature, and the letters from the abutters did come in addressed
Okay,
to me, so I'm
I'm going to put you down as
signing for the committee.
on behalf of, okay? So I'll put these in final form, and also include in that, I'll put it like in one email with just the letters without the envelopes from the committee. In fact, I guess you have to do all three, even though they're three identical. And so you would have one package to provide to the selectmen. Okay.
That's great. Now, let's see what I've, we'll go to 3. It might be appropriate to talk about Park Street, Minister Schoolhouse Pond, next, because some of the information that has come to us from Neil, our DPW, Neil Anderson, in the past month fit into your thinking on the letters going out to the Minister Schoolhouse Pond folks. Let's see, the big thing is that Neil has said that we don't know at this point who owns Park Street. He thinks that the actual landing down by the water is on the elementary school deed, but he's not sure who owns Park Street, and let's see, he's essentially saying that the first step is to, go to the town administrator?
Yeah,
and-
yeah, but basically what they're going to have to do is determine ownership, and I don't think it would be anything like the Hay Road thing, but
No.
if in fact the town doesn't own it and realizes they should own it, then they will have to go to town meeting to take ownership of the land. But the first step will be the town is going to have to do whatever they do, a formal investigation to see if they own it. And I was thinking in that connection that maybe we could send an email to the town administrator on behalf of the Board of Management Committee, saying that, it would be helpful if whatever could be done to move this along, in the hope that perhaps it could be resolved at this year's town meeting. Because these folks, they've been waiting now. They came here a year, oh, am I too far? They came here,
Microphone, thank you.
they came here a year ago, this past summer. So they've been waiting a while, and it would be nice at least to try to move this piece up. Because I think from what Neil told us before, that he has some ideas and a design for what the town could do, if in fact they have the authority to do it. So it's just a case of now getting this resolved.
Yes, I'm recalling a little more of the detail in Neil's email. Basically, he said it's a matter for the town administrator and then town council. It's my opinion that what's involved here is deed research. Is that right, Adele?
Yeah, probably, and I don't know, the towns, municipal land is a little different than private land. They may have, when things, that might have been put in there as part of a subdevelopment, so it's more than, when they do subdevelopments, they have land that's part of the subdevelopment. I don't know, because I've never thought about what's there are houses on the other side of the school. But because I'm trying to figure out how you would get a public road, a road running down beside the school. It turns out not to be a town road, so the only way, certainly the school didn't build it.
It was an easement to access the pond.
You think? Yeah, so, but it came from some private property owner over there, yeah.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, so maybe that's what but in any case, that's what the town administrator will, maybe they look first on town maps and then they.
Would
go
that
to town
easement grant
council.
us anything more than just traveling over? Can we actually make some improvements on? Or that easement would be limited to just travel?
You can't tell unless you read the terms of the easement. But that's, the big thing is, I think he's got to present it to the town administrator, and I think we could help, reinforce the need for looking at this and moving it along.
In a case like that, for environmental reasons, it seems like something has to be done.
Yeah,
If the town doesn't own it, does that mean potentially the property owner gets stuck with having to do these improvements?
no, I would suspect at this point,
They probably won't turn it over.
property owner, if there is a property owner, may not want it anymore. I think it's one of these things that was done,
Yeah,
it's been, I can't say, I've been coming here forever, but the 70s, 80s, that road has been there, as far as I recall. Only because that was one of the few ponds that we could take our dog to. So, we don't fish, so we didn't go down there to fish or to swim, but we could take our dog down there. So it's been there a long time, and I was just very surprised to hear that it wasn't a town road, so.
Yeah.
But, that's what they'll do. They'll look into it, they'll make a decision, and hopefully if it needs to become town land, that can be done smoothly.
Yeah, so it involves paper research, probably involves conversations, interviews with people who maybe know the history of the pieces of land in that area. Yeah. So, all right, let's see,
Well, shall we go forward with an email to the town administrator, or
yes,
a letter, or?
yes. Is that an email that you could prepare?
Yeah, I could.
Great. Yes, and, all right, what do I have for, the next item that I think in terms of priority order is Orleans downtown wastewater planning. And I just wanted to direct your attention to the maps that I have passed out. I received a copy of this map earlier this week. I've attended, I guess, three planning meetings, and these are kind of subcommittee meetings under the Orleans Water Quality Advisory Panel overall working party. And the first thing I would call your attention to is note that this is only a 25% design, so nothing on the paper should be taken as a commitment to do it. It's just the beginning of the thinking and a piece of paper that displays what has been thought of thus far. Now, the four colors that we have here, if you look up in the corner, basically, the engineers from their experience are saying in an area this large, we probably would do it in phases, 4 phases. So, I believe they're saying that the pink phase comes first, which is kind of in the center, and then the green phase a little bit towards Eastham, the blue phase more towards the interchange exit 12 on Route 6, and then the last one, the tan colored. And I'm thinking, well, normally when the engineers phase something, they're talking about a year to 2 years, 2 years for doing a particular phase, because normally there would be in separate contracts. One thing to note is that, yes, the town of Orleans has reached this point, which is significant, because having this map here to come up
Sorry.
with quick estimates of how much money they're talking about. And I'll touch on that a little bit more. But if you also look here, see the red lines
Yeah.
that designate the watersheds?
Oh,
And so the way I read this is that it is interesting. Some of the downtown excess nitrate is going into Town Cove, but some of it also is heading off into Cape Cod Bay. See I don't know if you can.
Rock Harbor stream bed sub watershed up here at the top.
Yeah, basically, if you see these lines here, they are delineating a particular watershed that is kind of teardrop shaped, but it's discharging over into Cape Cod Bay. So really, and we know that they're saying Town Cove has got a 75% removal requirement for nitrate. We know that from the Mass Estuaries Program, but we also know Rock Harbor has got something like a 79% removal rate of nitrate, and we know that from the Mass Estuaries project that has been done from Rock Harbor.
Was Rock Harbor the same? I thought there was something about it being a dredged harbor or something like that. That was a different category.
You're right. And to add on to that, the professionals are saying that it would be much helpful to kind of put Rock Harbor planning on hold while they see how much good they can do in Town Cove, and basically get some sense of how effective the various technologies are that they're using, because Rock Harbor is, in a legal sense and also a topographical sense, it's a complicated area. They point out that the one proposal has been to reclassify Rock Harbor as a water body within the regulations. And they're pointing out that over the last 40-some years in Massachusetts, there's only been one other reclassification. So what they're saying is it's not the best way to go to kind of fix the situation, look for a regulation change. But there are others that are saying that it is unique. It may in fact be, 2 and 40-year type of place. And I guess my thoughts are that since we have so much other technical stuff going on, it may be best just to kind of set Rock Harbor into the future.
I noticed on here that is the last phase, it's the phase 4 one.
Yes.
So maybe that's why they kept the most priority there.
Well, in right now, there's really a very complex situation having to do with Cedar Pond, moving the power lines and all that kind of business. So
Right, so
it would be good to have that all work through to a final position before we then start picking up and looking
Charles,
at other situations.
are they contemplating a standard traditional collection system and treatment?
I'm glad you asked.
No treatment on here.
Pumping stations, that's a sign that something's going on.
Yeah, but where are they going to pump it to? There's no
I know,
treatment.
I'm glad you asked, but let me help you in that area. Okay. With this map, the engineers have made a quick estimate of what it would cost to do sewerage in this area. And they made estimates on, I think, 6 or 7 different technologies, and let me read them off to you here. The first one they did would be a gravity sewer. In other words, the idea is that they would construct this such that it all drained downhill to a new wastewater treatment plant. And now, it's all not downhill, but basically, it drains down to a pump station, and the pump station then pushes it over. Okay, so they've also done what they call an STEG, all right, and that's septage treatment effluent gravity. All right, now what's happening there is that it's like a regular septic tank system. There's the house, there's the tank, and then there's the leach field. Okay, well, what they're doing is they're leaving, or not leaving, but they're constructing a septage tank which would need to have the solids removed from it, but the liquid, instead of going to a leach field, goes by gravity to a sewer collection system. All right. Now, there is an alternative to that, in that when you can't do a gravity system, you can do a pump system. So that means all the homeowners would have associated with their septage tank, a pump that pumps it to the municipal system, and that's where the liquid goes. But they still have to have the solids pumped out of the tank later on, as it builds up over a 3-year period. So there's, as they say, they call them, I guess, I've heard them pronounce it, but it's STEG and STEP, P for pump at the end, G for gravity on that. And that is, they basically, when they do it that way, that changes the elevation planning so differently that it really becomes quite a different layout system that way. But now there's also what they call low-pressure sewer. And low-pressure sewer is really when you have a building that's kind of below the mainline sewer pipe, and that the homeowner would pump both solids and liquid up into the main pipe, and then it would go to the wastewater treatment plant. That's low-pressure sewer. They also have something called vacuum sewer, and vacuum sewer, it looks like instead of you're pumping, you're sucking it. And so the joints on all the sewer pipes are suction tight. And but I guess it's a different enough technology, pumps, suction devices, how you power it, that kind of thing. So it really is a whole different way of doing a septic or sewer engineering. And then they've also done mixing. I guess they've done at least 2 hybrids. And that's, I guess, with the judgment of the design engineers saying, okay, well, if we did all, say, STEG in this area, then we could do just gravity sewer over in this area, and between the two, we would get the best efficiency out of both systems and get efficiency that we couldn't get from just one system alone. Now, they do have preliminary numbers for all of those that I mentioned to you, gravity, lower pressure, all that kind of business. Basically, all of them to build look like they're about $25 million for this whole colored area. And it also looks like $10 to $15 more in operational and maintenance costs over the next 20 years. And these are just initial numbers, and basically is kind of, as I understand what the engineers are doing there, they look for points of information that are pretty certain, and they build around them, and they use that information next to see what makes the most sense. I think that to me, it was kind of enlightening to see that they costed out doing the whole thing by just one technology, each one of those technologies, that they all were coming up in something like $25 to $30 million worth of work, no matter which technology you used.
Or mix.
Which, to some extent, says, well, most of them have to do with, you got to trench the ground for the most part, and it's pretty standard cost to trench the ground. So it should be pretty standard.
That cost estimate, Charles, does that include all 4 of these shaded areas, or are you just talking about the pink initially?
I have seen a table that just covers all 4, not each one of those pieces. And if you want to go into that detail further, we can, but you're getting a lot of detail right here. Know that it exists, know that it's going to come back to you, know that the folks that are doing the hard thinking, the volunteers from Orleans that are going to the planning meetings for downtown sewerage are seeing that kind of information at this point. And
But nothing just interrupt you a moment, nothing in what you've said suggests that this technology that we were exposed through, which is revolutionary, I mean, that's not an option, right?
a meaning,
That is that
Heufelder's.
the
Oh.
on-site treatment, actually, and improving the efficiency of an on-site system, like we all have in Eastham,
Yeah.
the carbon-based leach field.
yes, yeah, that's,
I mean, that's just
Well,
theoretical stuff at this point?
somewhat, I think. If you look at the last, it was mentioned last time, and I went and looked at some of the last McCoy Bay annual meeting, Heufelder made a presentation there. And I don't know if there's a video of the presentation, but his slides and things are online, and you can sort of see where he's going, and he describes it all. But he does end up saying that there are, certain, not drawbacks, but certain issues that probably may make it hard to go in that direction. One is cost, because it will require more expensive individual septic systems than what people now have, and also size. To do the layering that he's talking about, you need a bigger area that not everybody has for their leach fields. And also, he says, just basically change and inertia. But he doesn't, I didn't get the impression, looking at those slides, that he sees this happening tomorrow, as opposed to continuing to press it and to get people to look at it and think of this as a way to go. But go and look at it. You'll find it under Wacoit Bay,
Well, I was
under the
fascinated
annual
with
meetings.
what you sent me. I mean,
Yeah, well, this is a new presentation he has.
Some modification to the original one that was done in
I guess
2010?
it's just summarizing it and different, different things, but he also, he has some, it's mainly, I think, his, maybe not his conclusions, but his thoughts about where it's going, that I thought were new in this.
Well, I didn't mean to knock you off track, Charles, but
no, that helps. Yeah, my understanding is that George is in the pilot phase, and that what he's piloting does not have any regulatory approval now. And really, Orleans is in the position of needing to come up with an engineering plan that reflects due diligence in pursuing the situation. And they have reached the point where they have 12, 15 people around a table being briefed by the lead engineer for AECom on this project, and that's basically where I'm getting my information that I'm saying to you.
There was, and I can't recall all the details, but at some point, there was some discussion of Orleans doing a small pilot of Heufelder's approach. And in fact, it may be somewhat more feasible in a town like Orleans, where I think properties do tend to have more land by and large. I think it would be hard, for example, if you look over by the Bayside, in that area around Steel Road and that sort of stuff, that sort of area. Doesn't seem to me you're going to have the land there that he seems to describe you need, which is not a point he made in his earlier
What
presentations.
was he thinking of, like at least a half acre per house, or maybe?
Well, I
I
think it's
know,
a
I
percentage
don't
increase.
remember the details, just the,
Yeah, I
spread.
just-
In
I
other
mean-
words, you got to have a much wider spread than you normally have for a leach field.
Yeah, and over on the bay, a lot of stuff was built there when it was still a quarter acre, or if it was anything, I don't know. And then,
Yeah.
like where I am, they upped it to half acre. I think now there's not very much left, but it's 1 acre.
Yeah, yeah,
So it depends on how old the
yeah,
community
yeah.
is.
But so I think that would be.
I think in that video, Adele, he mentions a percentage increase in size over the average present
Yeah.
leach field. I forget what that number was.
I don't remember it either, but, so anyway, that's what, he seems to be saying, that this is promising, but he doesn't expect it's tomorrow.
Available for planning at the moment.
Yeah,
Another thing you said, you said all those things were about, you said there were 6 of them, I didn't quite get 6, but, well, they had, just on those, you said they were all about the same price. Did they all include pumping out the solid waste and trucking, or was there anything that didn't require that?
that's a good point. The way they calculated it was total cost of the engineering concept. In other words, when the homeowner had to pump out the solids from the homeowner's tank, when you're doing that STE options, the numbers that the engineers are working with now include that cost, so people can just get a general feeling for the overall amount of money it takes to do the different technologies, so they can kind of compare technologies side by side. And there are some that, put costs on the owners.
Anytime you're pumping solid waste, I assume it would do that.
Right, they have to pay for the pump out of the tank, the solids out, which is a cost.
But it sounds like there has to be a difference between operational costs and capital costs. And I think your first number is a capital cost.
Yes, yeah. I saw the table, and what my quick assumption was that all of them, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I guess 2 hybrids, 6, 7, all are in about the $25 million range. Well, some are 30 and whatnot, but that's to construct it. And then you have 10 to 15 million to operate it, maintain it over the next 20 years. So they've done that costing too.
Now, is that the same whether they're pumping the solid waste themselves or they're doing it, the homeowner is doing it? I mean, does the total operating cost they came up with about the same, just depends on who is paying for it?
Well, okay, yeah, perhaps after the meeting I could show you the table, but basically what I'm saying is that 10 to 15 million dollars maintenance and operations cost is an overall cost such that a person could sort of fairly look at the costs side by side on one piece of paper, if that makes sense to you.
I think you're saying that having the homeowner pump the solid waste would cost the town less, but if you add in the cost to the homeowner, it comes out, it's about the same.
Well, I can't say that.
I guess I'm nervous here because we're settled at a lot of speculation without a lot of fact, and that,
Well, I was just saying, just
yeah,
wondering
no, I
what they
know,
said.
but I just, people do listen to this, and they're liable to think that we know what we're talking about. And I don't like to
Good point.
convey that impression if we don't.
No, Adele's got a very good point there, and I would say
I
that,
was going to see if I could find the table on here.
yeah, no, well, but basically, I think the point of information is to you, they're at 25% design, they have a concept of 4 phases, they know all of the length of the trenches under the different engineering concepts, and so they've been able to come up with some sort of 25% design numbers, which are, very preliminary and don't reflect any decisions whatsoever in terms of which way to go. But they do break down construction costs now and operations and maintenance costs over 20 years, and the initial numbers do show any money anybody is spending to make it happen. Shall we say it that way? If the homeowner is...
Charles, these shaded areas are the central core of Orleans.
Downtown.
Down here, there's an awful lot of residential lots. Are those not a problem?
Good point. Basically, they know they need to take 75% of the nitrate out of the water that's getting into Town Cove. All right? And the engineers essentially know from their discipline that if they sewer all of the buildings that are close together, it'll be lower cost than trying to sewer buildings that are further apart. And what they've done is this is just what I've heard them say, basically they're hoping to get 50% of the 75%, their share of responsibility out of downtown. But they're going to have to do something at another place, Meeting House Pond, and they're also hoping that permeable reactive barriers that are putting in to catch what's coming out of the landfill will also contribute a small amount, and then the aquaculture activities will contribute a small amount. And as they find out how effective the cheaper technologies are, then they can perhaps cut back a little bit on how much they sewer. I think I heard them say that their initial thoughts were they were going to have to do 390 buildings in the downtown area. But now they're thinking that, well, it may only be 350. And of course, I mean, these are pretty big numbers, but it's just, a sensing of what's there, what the opportunities are, what opportunities are not there. And as I say, I'm just repeating what I've heard the professionals say. It's nothing that I can vouch for in terms of the exact information.
This whole thing is a collection system layout, and there's another piece of this, obviously, which is their treatment plant, which isn't covered here. They're still planning, so far as I understand, to have their own treatment plant for their own sewerage, so I suspect that that's still in the works. And there's also where the effluent goes. And I just sent out earlier today, because I'd forgotten about them, some stuff that was in the Cape Carter at the end of the year. One is an article, interesting, about Orleans talking to Brewster about the possibility of a site along Route 6A in Brewster that they could use for wastewater disposal. But I think it's interesting that they're talking about partnering with Brewster.
Wasn't the Tri-Town thing kind of on the line between them?
Yeah, but but yes, and originally Tri-Town was Tri-Town, Brewster, Orleans,
right.
and Eastham. Orleans said they're closing that plant, and what they're going to build is only to treat Orleans septic. They're not going to take anybody else's, including Brewster's.
Oh, Orleans said that.
Yeah, oh, they said that all along, and
That's
that's
interesting.
part of our problem. If we sewer any place, what are we going to do with the stuff after we, get it all nicely sewered? But now they're talking to Brewster about a site in Brewster as a place for their effluent to go, because they're still stuck with that problem, because though the U.S. Geological Survey says it's safe to put it under Namskakket Creek,
Yeah.
there are a mobilized group in Orleans who say, no, it's not safe, so they can't put the effluent there.
A mobilized group. They have other suggestion? These people?
No.
Just not in our backyard.
Well, I mean, any place else, it's got to be even closer to,
Well,
the
whatever, they say it can't go
I
under
mean,
Namskakket.
Namskakket is, it's a nice place, and it's got an estuary,
Well,
but,
they don't want it there. So
I don't
anyway,
know any place that would be
I sent this.
any better.
I did email
A lot
this
of places
stuff
would
to
be
you,
worse.
so I'm just going to briefly mention what it is. So the one is about that and some other stuff. Then there's an interesting little squib about their chair of their finance committee made a presentation to the Board of Selectmen about, the Board of Selectmen having to, get on top of the cost of this system and all the rest of it. And he ends up with an interesting comment, which I think is obviously aimed at us, that wants selectmen to make sure that when deals are struck, that the town isn't on the hook for overrides, isn't held liable if other towns that Orleans shares water with, such as Town Cove, don't fulfill their obligations. That's a nice
I
little,
guess you could write that both ways.
that's a nice little swipe.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's,
Is there some history of them paying for our expenses?
no. But I think they're just saying, that they're, I don't know what they're saying, but he's, I think, just
well,
decided.
well, but,
Houses in Eastham, they're on Town Cove,
yeah,
are fairly low.
No, that's not what he's
density.
talking about. He's not talking about the houses in East Hampton. He's talking about the fact that to meet the requirement, the Town Cove be cleaned up, we have to do 25% of it. They have a 75% responsibility, we have a 25% responsibility. So what he's basically saying is, the town of Orleans should be careful to structure things so that if we don't fulfill our 25% responsibility, they're not stuck holding the bag and having to do more than 75%.
yeah, no, but that's the thing that in the past has been somewhat missing. Now with the 208 plan that they've come up with, they've been able to assign to all of the watersheds on Cape Cod a specific limit as to how much nitrate they can let into the estuaries. And in that way, they've been able to say, okay, of the 75% that's got to come out of Town Cove, 25 of that belongs to Eastham because of the way the watershed boundaries lie, and the other part is picked up by Orleans. And all right, that's the, but, let's loop back a little bit if we could to the map. Let's see, as we realized that the Tri-Town plant was growing old, and we had to make a decision as to whether to renovate it and keep it working or decommissioning it, the idea came up that, well, in the past, Orleans and Eastham, as two towns, have been kind of working in a joint effort to deal with septage. Basically, at that point, they were only treating the solids over at the existing Tri-Town plant. All right, now, as we realized there was going to be a new plan in the future, I had heard people in town saying, well, if there's any possibility that we could have a joint effort with Orleans, that might help both of us and make it less expensive. All right, now, if you follow that line of thinking, and you look at the map here, up in this green area, you can see just the beginnings of the rotary. Okay, now, there is, I guess it's called either Ellis Road or Old Colony or something.
It says Old Colony here, yeah.
Yeah, it runs in
Yeah.
behind Goose Hummock.
And that almost immediately becomes Eastham.
Yeah,
Well, just about where the sign is coming straight down here.
yeah, I've driven up that road last week because I was kind of curious. There is something like 5, 7 or more houses up there, but then the street ends. Now, one might say, well, there is a certain efficiency if those Eastham houses were serviced by Orleans because the road runs up there. All you have to do is trench up. But you eventually get to the point where some other corridor has got to be found if any sewage was to come from Eastham in the direction of Orleans. There's no other road in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of houses between there and the Salt Pond that are just in Eastham. They don't have much to do with Orleans.
Yes, and
Quite a
basically,
few of them, I think.
yeah, basically, they all tie into Route 6, and that would be probably where the engineers would say, well, that's your corridor, how could you use it? Well, all that thinking has not happened yet. I mean, basically, Orleans is going ahead, due diligence, come up with a plan that's feasible, know what it costs. And then we would eventually get to the point where we would know the practicality of attempting to tie in anything from Eastham.
I can't quite agree with that presentation, Charles.
Okay, go ahead.
Orleans has made it unequivocally clear since they started talking about taking down Tri-Town that they were not interested in any further joint activity. And in part, that was the result of a town meeting vote as to what the comparative costs would be between building a plant that could service more than Orleans. And they had some estimate, this goes back a couple of years, I don't remember it all, and town meeting voted it down. So they went back to, okay, what we will build will serve only Orleans. I mean, I think this town has been more than interested and willing to go forward with a joint participation all along, but has not gotten any receptivity from Orleans. So unless Orleans changes its position, I don't know, frankly, what we're going to do. But
Would that not change perhaps with change of administrations?
in Orleans?
Yeah, town councils or, I mean.
Oh, you
there
mean the
can be
Board of
some very
Selectmen?
vocal people
We
that
can't
can-
count on it.
Yeah, I
No, no,
don't,
no, but it does happen, you know.
I
Yeah, it
know,
does,
but I mean,
but
it might
there's-
just be wishful thinking.
yeah, they're staggered terms, for
Something
one
to
thing.
probe,
They don't
yeah.
turn over as a, they don't turn over a whole body. And this has been a pretty consistent position. I don't know, trying to think of that one guy. I can't swear to it whether it was unanimous of all the selectmen or not, but let me just say that the Orleans selectmen seem to be closely following what town residents are asking for. It's
And
like
voting
they're
for it.
backing away from the effluent under Namscacket Creek, and that was in response to what town residents said they wanted done. And I think that, they will respect the vote, and they, it's all money, I guess,
Yeah.
is what it comes down to.
But, the very difficult question, what are they proposing instead of Namscacket? Same question for us, assuming
Yeah.
we are not going to have anything to do with Orleans, where do we pump it or discharge
Think
it?
about the outflow of a sewage treatment plant?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've seen it on a lot of rivers and streams.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't,
Well,
Make them nervous.
let me add something at that point. Okay, there is a state law that's new, within the last 10 or so years, as I understand it, and it says that any treated wastewater from a wastewater treatment plant has to be put back into the ground in the watershed in which that liquid came from.
It's been around a lot longer than 10 years, but.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so, yes, and right now, there is a whole separate effort that is reviewing the possible places to do the discharge, have the injection wells. And the folks down, I haven't talked about it with this group, but I've heard the others talk about it, and basically, there are places where treated effluent could go back into the ground, but it involves property ownership and getting DEP approval,
You're talking about
all
OD.
kinds
so
of
it
things.
gets injected back into the water table rather than through some
There's other natural discharge.
natural.
Now, it still ends up being discharged eventually because that water's going towards the ocean.
Yes, but we're well past the days when you can actually have a pipe
Outflow
running
pipe.
from the land out to the
Well, not a
ocean.
pipe, I mean, Tri-Town wasn't just a pipe.
Well, no, they had injection wells right there
Right.
on site. And,
Charles,
Now, they've looked at a variety of places. This Brewster thing is one. They tried to get a site on 6A, actually near the Near the interchange,
Yeah,
Route 12
definitely.
interchange. And they were talking to the State Highway Department. So they are exploring various places to get rid of the effluent, but apparently it's not resolved. So it's up
Yeah,
in
so
the
you
air.
need a watershed where you can pump it in and not just have it backing back up at you. I mean, Namscachet was Namscac, how do you, Namscac?
Namscachet, like Skagit, only with a Nam.
Namscachet was good for that. In fact, the government said they could have taken 8 times more effluent, but you had the big thing. But I don't know if we have anything like Namscachet in Eastham.
Well,
Rock Harbor's
yeah,
about
no,
it.
well, no,
And that's not even, already we're trying to clean that up.
well,
And
well,
that's not all
I
ours.
I would,
Right.
yeah, you're right, Scott. And I would say, recommend, put that thought on hold until we start doing the review of the TM4, because TM4 talks about the town cove responsibility that Eastham has for dealing with wastewater. And yes, I mean, the engineers would have to say, okay, well, what are the different ways we could do that strip of buildings that run right along Route 6 on the edge of Town Cove? That's, as they say, just into the future. But to some extent, I think.
TM4 isn't going to, don't mislead people about what they're going to see. TM4 doesn't talk about anything about engineering concepts or anything like that. Well, at most, what it will talk about is possible approaches, like maybe some sewering here, some PRBs here, some
Oysters over there.
IAs here, some, here's your Chinese menu. But we're a long way from anything like engineering approaches or anything like that. And it does have some possible, very possible, unknown sort of, but maybe this could be a place where treatment, I don't know, I haven't read it now in over a month, but I mean, it's very preliminary. I mean, it's not preliminary in that it identifies particular methodologies, but it's certainly preliminary in terms of where Orleans is at, in terms of engineering plans or anything like that.
Scott?
Charles, the pink area, which is the downtown core of Orleans, has been selected because of what? It is the greatest generator of wastewater, or it is the fact that these properties are jammed together and there's not enough space for the treatment, on-site treatment?
Well,
I mean, I know that's backing way up. I mean, this is work they did years ago.
no, as I understand it, when you're collecting sewage and piping it to a treatment plant, the least expensive situations will be where the buildings are quite close together. Because there is, and I've heard engineers say that when you get more than, I think they say 150 feet, you're sort of coming into the upper limit of the practicality of cost benefit.
Okay, so that's the driver.
Yeah, there's
Because
also-
I look at a lot of buildings downtown that there's just a few people in there, like a
Yeah,
clothing
but there's
store.
a hope. Now, whether this will come to be or not, there's a downtown plan quite apart from this, a downtown development plan of trying to put apartments over those shops. It's supposed to make the downtown more vibrant, to have more people living in the central, hard to say central city, central town, that sort of thing. So that's, will ever come to pass, I
Population
don't know.
density could go way up.
But
if
it's
that-
a whole idea of expanding that whole area as a residential area.
Exactly. There is the rezoning concept, and there is, I believe, what we might consider a sub-working group that's just thinking the rezoning aspects. But putting small apartments over shops downtown has the impact of providing more rental housing. It also has the idea of getting more people to be downtown. One of the ideas that I heard in one of those planning meetings that went on about a year ago, was that there are some people who would go to a downtown area not to see what's there in terms of just look around and whatnot, but to be seen, because it's a place for human activity, and you just want to get a sense for what the other folks are doing in their social time or their casual time. So, there is another part, and the Orleans is getting a contractor consultant to advise them on, how to adjust the zoning. It also involves the parking, things like that. But we're just talking about kind of the engineering pieces here. Okay, and as I say, please be careful with the meaning of the information on this map, because they're only 25% design, and the engineers are still going through the process of what if, and what would it cost. Let's see, doing planning wastewater downtown. Yeah, let's finish off on downtown wastewater. Let's go to the advisory panel. That's kind of a quick item. And if you would look on the back of the agenda that I passed out, there was an article in the Cape Codder this week, 6th of January, and it's a pretty good summary of where they might go with using shellfish in Town Cove to help bring down the nitrate levels, because that is one of the tasks that in their comprehensive wastewater plan, to look at that and see how much could be done in that way, because it basically is cheaper than going through the structural engineering activities. But this is what we're looking at here in this article. This could be something rolling out over 2, 3, or more years. And it also has to do with natural systems, and there's always the chance that either a storm or a disease or the climatic changes would come through and it would upset the benefit that, they're hoping to get in that particular direction. And also, be sensitive. There are folks out there this is their living. They do harvest natural, wild shellfish, and it's important that a public activity does not disturb the feasibility of what they're doing. That's their livelihood. So, okay, that's,
What is the visual
Yeah,
complaint?
well,
the boat, people out in their boats.
no, there are some folks that.
Oh, the Comrades,
What's that?
the Comrades, you
No,
said?
the grants.
Oh, what's that
Seeing
mean?
these things floating
Oh,
on the
people
surface?
have shellfish grants.
Yeah, no, I
That
understand
area,
that.
it's theirs, that they're the only ones who are allowed to
But-
do
but
whatever
here-
they do there.
Here the article, Adele
Says-
says, one resident complained that they marred the beauty of the pond.
Oh, I don't know what that
That's what your question was.
Well,
Yeah, all those floating things out
Yeah,
there.
what is it that they don't like this one person didn't like the hooks of?
Looks like trash to them.
No,
I don't know, I saw, isn't that what they had off of Pocasset Island, down into south there? I was out there last summer, saw rows of these things out there, I thought that's what it was.
Up
It could be, yeah.
Hershey Island.
Oh, is that the way you pronounce it?
Well, that's how I've heard it.
yeah, I've heard him say.
I went on a tour there, and the guide gave 3 different pronunciations. He says, everybody thinks it's something different. And he said,
You look
nobody
in the
really knows because there's
southwest,
an Indian
You can see
name.
those oyster.
Yeah, well, you could, they were pulling them in for the winter, I think. I don't know what they were doing with them in the winter, but,
Yeah, well, no, that's all part of it, you're right.
See
There are,
them.
there are some people who have really what they consider their vacation home overlooking water that's in Town Cove or down in Pleasant Bay. And rows of rectangular cages that have shellfish in them is looked upon as, gee whiz, that's farming, that's something we have come here to not look at. And,
Okay.
um,
I thought they looked okay.
and yes, it's true that, a Realtor might say, well, we have to discount a little bit because we don't have the view that you have a quarter mile further on down the coast or something like that. That's, part,
Would
all
you
part of
prefer
what's
that to
there.
paying to putting in sewers? I mean, they're the people in town. If they would prefer not to have oysters, they can have more sewers and pay more taxes.
yeah,
I
but-
mean, that's their choice.
Usually when I've heard people complain about farming in the vicinity of them, up in Vermont, when it was a pig farm or something next door to you, it was because it was smelly and ugly. But I didn't think those things were either. In fact, they were improving the
Just floating
environment.
on top of the water.
Well, yeah, no, we really have an extremely diverse population here.
Yeah.
It's,
Some people don't like the looks of a windmill.
yeah. So, okay, so we did, let's see, let's talk a little bit about Orleans doing a freshwater pond management plan. Now, this is all part of their overall wastewater planning, but basically, they're stepping up to doing a good, sound engineering study of their 16 ponds. And the contractor in this case is SMAS, and they've had 2 or 3 meetings, and basically it is somewhat similar to what Eastham did back in the 2010 and 11, when we hired Ecologic to look at our 11 ponds and give us a strong report as to what we could do and what the scientific basis of it is. Now, they're just starting that, and the starting point is they look at the quality of the data that they have on the ponds. And they have been doing the PALS sampling since, I guess it's, I've written down, yeah, I've seen that. Since 2005 to 2016, they're able to lay out the 5 samplings in the summer of each of their ponds, which is what the professionals need to look at in order to understand the character of each pond that's going on there, because each one has a little bit of a different story to it. I didn't know it, but one of the ponds in Orleans is 60 feet deep. Our deepest pond is 30 feet deep, which makes it a different water body in character. And as I say, I mean, that's just what as I listen and to what their discussions are. So, and as I say, now the professional needs all of that data to look at and come up with some conclusions, which then make some determination as to how impaired the water body is.
Not if they do it like the ecologic study. The ecologic study looked at that data just as an initial thing, and then they went out and did their own individual studies of each of the ponds.
Right.
I mean, they did, I don't have the scientific terminology to describe what they did, but they did their own testing of the ponds. They went and I think they did I don't know, broader is the right word, but they tested for more than the PALS sampling did in order to come up with their conclusions about impairment. It's a whole, I mean, the work that they did was far more than just the studying and then writing it up. They also did a lot of their own sampling and that sort of stuff.
Yes, yes.
It's all described in the pond action plan that they came up with.
Yes, I agree, yeah. I mean, they haven't even gotten to the point where they know what more information they need, because they're still looking at, is basically the starting point, which is the PALS data. And I don't know if,
Well, they won't be able to do anything before the summer anyway.
yeah. The PALS is a county program, where a lot of the cost of the laboratory work is done. It county level, and we have the volunteers that go out and actually collect the water and send it in, which is a lot of expense, but it also helps out tremendously in terms of lowering the cost for what the towns would have to do.
You mean like the sampling and town
Yeah,
code?
what you did there,
Exactly.
but it's done in the ponds here.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's been going on for a good 15.
yeah,
Years.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think Sandy's been doing it forever.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
But,
And you've been doing it for quite a while. too.
well, but
I
without,
just got involved 1 year ago.
yeah, but without that PALS data, you can't hire a consultant,
Yeah.
because the consultant would say, okay, let's spend the next 10 years collecting data, and then I'll be able to understand, what I might recommend to you. So, no, that's, good organizing of the work, although it takes a long time. All right, let's see where we are. I'm just kind of,
Oh, is Lonnie's Pond freshwater?
it's brackish. It's
Oh.
it's connected to the bay.
Okay, that's what I thought, but then I didn't know they were talking about doing any oysters in freshwater.
No, you
I
got,
don't
you
think they
you
are.
gotta, you gotta have some
Yeah,
some
yeah.
salinity.
Yeah, like that 60-foot pond, that probably isn't freshwater, saltwater.
No, that's fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
If it's connected, it doesn't stay 60 feet deep.
yeah.
Yeah.
The, okay, let's, now, we're getting down kind of to the smaller information here. Jane asked me to help out taking a stormwater discharge grab sample for, Minister Schoolhouse Pond and for Salt Pond. In other words, we have drainage coming down from Route 6, and the idea is that when it's raining, you run out there and you grab some water, and you send it to a laboratory, and you find out what type of pollutants, contaminants are in it. All right, well,
And that's just one, it's only coming in one place there's a double pond there.
no, two places, Salt Pond.
Oh, Salt Pond, I'm sorry, I thought
A
you said
little bit
school.
closer down the road.
I thought you said Schoolhouse Pond.
Yeah,
Schoolhouse.
well, both places.
Mr. Schoolhouse and Salt
Yeah,
Pond.
both of them have discharge pipes
You're talking from Route 6.
from Route 6.
Not from
Yeah,
Park Street.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
they're not the only places, but I'm not saying what those other
So
places are.
how do you get a grab sample? You have a sterilized bottle or something like that? and you-
Well, that's exactly it. She had the bottles, and she said, she said, I don't have the protocol. Perhaps you can find out the protocol for how you put various liquids into the various bottles and what you have to do with it afterwards, like refrigerate it or seal it tightly or something. And then it normally, from the PALS work, it's all within a certain hours and temperature to get to a lab to
Constable.
be analyzed. Yeah. So, well, now, when she asked me to do this, it was more than a year ago, and I went looking for the protocols, and I asked the various people that I know who I think had done that kind of work in the past, where they got their protocol. Well, within the past 3 months, I eventually got up into the Department of Transportation structure, and I talked with a person at District 5, which is in Taunton, Massachusetts, and he passed me off to the person at DOT headquarters who handles this stuff. And his name is Henry Barbaro. All right. And Henry Barbaro and I had a conversation on the phone back in November, and basically he said he would very much like to send me or give me access to this kind of information that has already been collected. And he said that the Massachusetts Department of Transportation had worked with USGS, federal agency, to go get samples that were representative of Route 6. And one of them was done in Marion, and the other one was done in Harwich. And basically, Mass DOT was saying, this is what we can provide you with. We know what you're asking for, and it's more than what we have, but we do have that information. Now, So it was really only within the past 10 days or so that I had been able to get that information and by email relay it on to Jane. I think I,
That's my stuff.
okay, I'm, it's, just for your own edification, what I was able to go online and get access to, basically what this column here is, and this is from Marion, okay, total nitrogen, event means concentration, milligrams per liter as nitrogen. That's what their column is. I'm thinking that we pass that off to the GHD folks, you know, because they would be the one that would know if it has any utility at this point, because this is kind of field data.
But it's field data from Marion and Harwich. I'm puzzled as to how that helps us find out what's going into Minister Schoolhouse or Salt Pond. So I
Exactly.
don't we still have to do our own catch?
Where's this place you said?
This data that they sent him,
Was from,
it was from catches they did in Marion and in Harwich.
oh, Harwich, I know,
Yeah.
where's Marion?
Well,
That's on the mainland.
Well, it's across the canal near Wareham.
But,
Was this, sending us this just to give us the samples of what we need, or were we supposed to use the
Well,
data for something?
basically give us an idea of what the data might look like, and basically understand that that's really about as far as DOT has been able to collect information on its own operations. I mean,
it seems to me that, I mean, what we could get out of a water sample depends on who the chemists are that analyze the water sample. Whether, you know, maybe DOT is right, this is all that's in the water.
No.
But maybe they're not, you know.
well, no, but I was also going to show you this one. Now, the same place I was able to get this, I also kind of got this cover sheet. And to me, it was talked about a CD-ROM that you could get that would inform you as to all of the procedures that are behind these numbers. And it made a lot of sense to me that an agency like Mass DOT would probably go to a federal agency that had skilled staffers that could go out and take samples and verify the accuracy of it, because they would be doing it for a number of different states and stuff like that. Okay, we didn't have it before, but I'm happy.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask again, Charles, as I've asked before, will you please email those things?
Yes, yes.
And maybe if you want the committee to be familiar with them, you should email them to the whole committee.
Yeah, they said
Also,
they're doing C.
The
is that-
table that you
Oh.
referred to before, is that something that could be scanned? When you were talking about all those various methods and costs on the
Oh,
steg and step and all
Well,
that?
let's talk about that.
I don't need to talk about it, I just need to know, is it a document that could be scanned and sent out?
Yes, it can be.
Okay.
But I don't really know exactly how to do this. I was hoping just quoting the numbers that I was giving was enough for what we need, the time we need to spend on that subject for this
Is it
committee.
a problem if people have it and read it? I don't understand.
I don't think so. It's,
It's a public document, I'm
Yes.
certain.
yes.
And within probably a week, if we were to go searching on the Orleans website, we could get it from the website.
Yes.
But, I mean, if you thought it was some information that we should have, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have it. Maybe Scott can answer his questions.
Oh, yeah.
that he
No,
has.
no,
I mean, you know,
no.
I don't
I'm
think
in
so.
favor of spreading information.
Well, no, I mean, I'm mindful of the fact that all of our handouts that we bring to the committee create a task in terms of keeping them for the to meet the open meeting law, so.
That's not a problem. I'm the one who's responsible for keeping them, and I'm asking for it, so don't
Okay.
worry
He's
about it.
just trying to be considerate,
All right, good.
but
good,
dump
good.
it on her.
Yes, I will definitely get that to you. Now,
I have a large database, if I could be,
But-
I shouldn't say database, a lot of megabytes. or whatever they have in these things.
Well, the only thing I'd say is that table also has that same 25% design on it.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's not a decision, it's just,
Yeah, well, that'll be, I'm certain nobody will misuse the information or anything like that. It's just that if they had to get it all from what you were saying, they'll be able to look at the table and see what it means to them.
yeah. Now, so if we would switch off to another subject,
But before we switch off to another subject, because this is something, as you know, I talked about writing a letter to the state highway director, and then I went back and looked at all of that stuff, which I emailed out, including the fact that in 2005, they actually had designs to correct drainage on the highway and never did anything with them. So I'm thinking that to get any place with this issue, we're going to need more than a letter, and I'm going to put together some more information about what they're doing. That study that you referred to, the woman who was doing the rain gardens on
yes,
Route 6,
Yes.
where I could not find anything about that on DOT or the State Highway Department website. You said you were at a conference where it was discussed?
I found her on the website, her company's name.
yes.
Oh, under her company's name? What is her company's name?
Just as you said this, I'm looking to see if I wrote it down in here.
Well, I believe her name is Kate Kennan, Kennen. And, yeah, she has a private company and
I
also.
think the company's the one that had the contract,
and-
right, not her
and-
personal.
And DOT has a contract with her to do that prioritizing of discharges along Route 6 on this side of the canal. And
Okay, rather than take the time, Scott, maybe just send out an email as to what's the name of the company. I'm interested in looking, if anyone
Okay.
else is interested, they can also look at it.
Who was her name again? Kate what?
Kennan, you said.
I
K-
I think what I did was I just typed in Kate Kennan on Google,
And
and
came
it told
up
me
with it
what her
that way?
company's name, I
Okay.
found out her company's name and then read some of their stuff.
Okay, okay.
yes,
But I can't even, right now, I can't
All
even
right,
find her
that's
name.
fine. That I have all.
Kate Kennan, I'm gonna write that down
yeah.
again, though.
But let's talk a little bit about what
Was that K-E?
K-A-T-E, Kate,
A-T-E?
K-E-N-N-E.
Oh, K,
Kennne, N is in Nancy?
Yeah, that's the best,
K-E-N, K-E-N-N,
E-N. Yeah,
E. and Kennan.
I can verify that,
Yeah.
too.
Well, you can usually get a correction spelling if you do it,
But-
if you can play around with the fuzzy searches. But whatever it was, I wrote it down when you mentioned it before and then looked her up. And
Well,
I had
From
something
the
else
company.
I wanted to bring up, actually.
yeah, can we stay on that subject for a minute? I think Adele is right on in terms of exploring a possibility with this Kate Kennan and her contract to survey Route 6.
That's not what
You're
that's
not?
not why I'm not exploring, but I want to find out what she has been contracted to do and put that together with what the State Highway Department is or is not doing. It's very interesting because as I went back and looked at various things, including the state's stormwater plan, which comes off of the Clean Water Act, all of that plan relates to actions by municipalities and local governments. There is nothing in that plan that relates to actions by state agencies. And yet, pipes, ditches, et cetera, are point sources under the Clean Water Act. And what the State Highway Department has running off its roads, where it's dumping the stormwater runoff, is pipes. So the State Highway Department has point sources that are regulated by the Clean Water Act and by the state's own Clean Water Act. And yet they apparently, according to what Neil told us, just said basically they didn't have any money to spend on East End. I guess we're the orphan child, I don't know. But,
Maybe it's-
and this all sort of interested me in terms of what their obligations might be. And not having any money to spend and yet deciding they do have some money to spend on this study. I think it may require perhaps coming at it from a different type of angle than just saying, please come and, stop dumping, especially considering the fact, I mean, one of the things Neil is working on is a bioremediation project at Salt Pond to cure the runoff. So the town will have to spend money to deal with the runoff that's coming off of Route 6.
And it probably costs more money to do it later, after the fact.
Quite possibly, and also at some point, I suspect we're going to have to spend money to deal with the runoff into Minister Schoolhouse Pond. It doesn't seem quite right to me that a state agency creates a problem, and then the town has to foot the bill for repairing it. So,
Right on.
just think it bears that kind of exploration.
It's a very
Okay.
good thing to explore.
I did find some notes here. I had written down Kenner.
Oh, Kenner.
I'm not sure that's right, because
Okay.
I was writing it, and I'm not, it could have been an N, but it looks like an R, Kenner. And I got written after at Reagan Gardens, and Harvard Graduate School of Landscaping Design, and then something called PHYTO, and then the company, I got, CO, I think meant company, offshoots.
Offshoots.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's our company?
Oh, well, maybe,
oh,
maybe,
oh.
maybe that meant that was what they were looking for. I don't know, something, I written down offshoots here.
Yeah, no,
And it says,
The-
Bridge Reggie, runoff swim areas, find 20 places. 20 places? Find the worst 20 places?
or,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I was writing that as you were talking.
yeah, no, that's right. I did
Amazing.
buy a copy of that book that she wrote. It's called Phyto.
Oh, that's the name of the book,
Yeah,
okay.
basically, okay. And I've read a lot of my way through that because I'm curious as to whether there doesn't already exist some design that could be adopted already without having to make a new. Basically, I'm trying to figure out how much the marketplace already has done to come up with designs that fix these things. And I've got that book, I can certainly share it with anybody. It's a lot of case studies, all around the whole country as to who did what and what was the outcome, and what was basically the cost. It's a real good kind of graduate level reference, and that's basically what I understand Kate does. She teaches at Harvard at a graduate level on this particular subject, on landscape design. Okay, did I bring up the herring counts at last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so I've already done that. I've got the actual numbers here today if you want them, but if we don't need to go that far, that's fine. Okay, but the Association for the Preservation of Cape Cod has published them. They did that on the 26th of October, 2016, and the numbers for the past 3 years, 2014 through 2016, are available. Well, we've got our minutes to look at, but one thing before we do that, there has been some discussion about the fact that the pipe going over the bridge on Bridge Road down there at Boat Meadow detracts from the view. And
Got a little bit of green pipe there.
I happen to be,
What, the bridge itself?
No, it's a big.
No, the big black.
It's a big
part.
black
that
pipe on
piece
the
of
east
pipe.
side.
it's been in the paper. Now, I happen to be at.
How big is it in diameter?
Big.
And it's insulated, isn't it, also?
Yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't freeze in the winter, huh?
Well, I happen to be at the November 21st Board of Selectmen meeting when the engineer for installation of the municipal water system spoke on that subject. And basically, he pointed out that that bridge has already the phone line, a gas line, a bike lane, Yeah,
I don't mind that.
well, no,
I don't
Well,
ride
it's just,
bikes
it's got a wide, I mean, I go over the bridge all the time because I use the back way as much
Yeah.
as possible. It's just got a wide.
Bird
show.
watching
Yeah.
station,
I actually won't be-
fishing post.
I actually won't, yeah, right. I actually probably won't go over it much until summer traffic builds up.
Oh, yeah,
But I use it a lot in the summer.
I prefer it if I
yeah.
can use it.
Well, the engineer was making the point that all of the good places had already been taken. You know, I mean, the power lines, you know, I say phone, but also the electricity is underground coming across there. And if they took space on the sidewalk, then that would in fact kind of take space from the bike lane, which is meant to be right next to it. In other words, the bridge assumes that there's people are riding their bikes along the edge of the road, and when they go over the bridge, they need a designated space to do that kind of thing. Okay. They said they possibly could install a screen that stood up a little bit as a barrier. They could perhaps paint it a different color. I'm sensitive to the fact that, yes, that's a nice view as you go over that marsh. You just look over all those fields and look for birds and look for grass and all that. It's
I guess I hate to be a contrarian, but if you're driving your car, the only way that your view is obstructed is if, when you are on the bridge, you decide to turn your head to the right and look otherwise.
And
I
become a
mean,
distracted
when
driver,
I'm
yes.
going towards Orleans, I get a great view of the marsh before I ever get to the bridge, because it's laid out in front of you. And
Same on
if
the
I'm
turn.
coming the other way, I see the marsh because it's laid out in front of me. I am not in the habit of doing a right angle turn with my head as I drive over the bridge. It's not attractive, but, you know, it just, I don't know, I think that, all right.
You don't
It's
peek
just
at
my
sun-
personal
You don't
opinion.
peek at sunset?
I haven't seen it. I
Well,
think
you
I'll
have to
drive
be
that.
looking
I can
down
see
the
the
bay.
sunset.
On the marsh side.
Yeah, but I can see the sunset when if I'm coming, because you see it at an
It's only
angle.
right
I
Unprofessional,
don't-
it's awkward, it's out of balance, it's like, they have a big, huge 16-inch wide pipe at the top, and then they have a bunch of 4-inch ones down low hidden.
Yeah, but
It's
they-
out of
we
whack,
can't-
it's
yeah.
backwards.
I know, but we
It's just
can't
not
move the
elegant,
ones that are
that's all.
down below. They don't belong to us.
yeah, that's
So
true.
maybe
Should have run
we
the
should.
big one under the bridge.
Well-
Under the bridge
no, they
is 40
also-
feet wide.
No, there's something under the bridge also. If you look on their website, they have an explanation of why the pipe is where
Right,
it
They
is.
must.
They
but-
got something under the bridge, and they also thought about actually going down and going underground. But because, you know how much it varies there with the tides, they just decided that that was not feasible.
Yeah,
That couldn't.
yeah, that was one of their points. It was just
I
too
just
long.
think, that, you know,
Yeah, too long to do directional drilling. You know, it's just such a wide area that wouldn't have worked either.
it's, you know,
So,
yes, perfection would be lovely if we could have it,
Well, the
but
second
sometimes
bridge,
it's
right.
not attainable.
well, I mean, we got houses that now have fire protection because they have hydrants.
That's true.
You just, you know, it's a
And there would
balance.
be more of them when the next phase goes in. We got 80% so far.
It's a balance. All right, shall we do minutes?
Okay.
Yes.
Before we turn to the minutes, I have one suggestion I will throw out, if people may want to chew on this. I'm not expecting people to decide right now. But I've been trying to think about what we could do to prepare ourselves for what we will be facing in the wastewater planning process, what we might be able to do as a committee, as a group. You know, if you look at our charge, it talks about research and looking into things, basically examining and coming up with information about things. And it occurs to me it might be useful if maybe we had like a 20-minute summary or something. Of how did we get here to begin with? So that everybody's on the same page. I don't think we are, about the MEP reports, the lawsuit, and then the Cape Cod Commission, and what it's all about, where is it going, what does it mean for us, in very broad general terms. And then perhaps each member of the committee taking on one of the methodologies that is likely to be impact here, and taking some time to really get familiar with it, to understand it, maybe to look around, what where it's been used in other places. All this information, a lot of the information you can get from the 208 plan and otherwise, and then do a report on that to the committee as a whole. So we all begin to get up to speed on all of this, and I don't know, so it's an idea. Because I
I
just,
support that. I see that tying in nicely with this charge here of setting goals for this year.
The,
and it also, people, as Charles points out, this is broadcast and it's videoed, and it will also be a way of providing some information to the public in town, as well as educating ourselves.
I like the idea. Adele, would you do a quick tasking of subjects to different people based on?
Well, I don't know,
I think it should be more free-flowing and
Yeah.
a time set aside strictly to focus on that.
Yeah.
And go around the room and get everyone's feelings about it.
well, do you want to do it that way? Would everyone commit then to taking some time to look at the issue and study it, and so that when we get to feelings, that they're educated
Well, and
feelings?
Adele, I also like the idea of timelines and end dates and commitments to getting such and such accomplished by a certain time.
Okay,
That's not to suggest recklessness, but, keep our feet to the fire so that we,
okay. Well, I mean, I'm willing to do the initial summary thing, unless you want to do it, Charles, and I wouldn't do that until March, because I'll be away in February. But that would just be like a 20-minute run-through of the
So you-
various things that got us to where we are today. And I don't mean the technical memos, I mean that got the town to the point where they have to engage in this wastewater planning effort. You're looking puzzled, Scott.
Yeah, well, I haven't been around here that long. I mean, there's only 3 people on this.
I know, that's why I'm
really
saying.
know
that,
any of
yeah.
this history.
Yeah, well, that's why I think, and I think it would be
if-
useful if
I-
we did all,
As
get
you,
caught up with
I think
this.
Charles was sort of seconding you and saying, that we
Yeah.
can come up with a number of subjects. I mean, I'll be starting from scratch pretty much, but if you have a type of technology, a bunch of types of technologies, and you'd like people to research them, find out what they are,
yeah.
I would certainly be glad to do one.
Okay,
But I think I need to know where to start.
Yeah, no, I can come up with a list, that's fine.
Yes,
But I
that's
think what Jeff is also saying, instead of maybe one person, everybody should, like, if you got to look at PRBs, everybody should look at PRBs? You think that's
and
better?
prioritize things. I mean, there are some big weeds that we should maybe be focusing on.
Well,
You know what, no, well, I'm not getting what you're saying. What do you mean by prioritize?
Well, some of the things that we've been discussing maybe are more urgent than others.
Oh, okay.
And I don't
all
know
right.
what those are. I'm like Scott.
Well, no,
new, and my input is going to be very limited, except to say that I like tasks, I like goals, and I like conclusions.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I can identify the methodologies that certainly are what our consultants are looking at now. So they're likely to be choices that we're going to be making.
Possible choices.
So those would be things for
Right.
people to look at. I think that the process question is it best to say, okay, in April, we will all have studied PRBs, or to say, we'll do that, well, we could do that, and at the same time say, but one person will sort of have the lead and do a little summary of what PRBs are, and then we can have a discussion. Is
I
that
would
what you're
also
talking about?
personally like to be working on something between now and 4 weeks out. I mean,
Okay.
just to come to a meeting, I don't feel like I'm doing anything.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't I undertake to, I realize I'm about to go away on January 30th, but I can do this before that. Why don't I undertake to come up with a list of the methodologies, and I can either assign them to people, or I can throw out the list and say who wants to do which.
Adele, you got to be here in March?
Yeah. We'll be back around the 5th.
That's the first time I'll be back.
See, I'm going to be missing the March thing. This might,
What do you
winter's a bad
One,
time, but
2, 3, 4,
Well, I
5.
probably should have
Is-
thought of
is
this sooner,
Suzanne
but I've been
still
sort of,
on the committee?
who?
Yeah, yes.
She is?
Yep.
Yeah,
Because she was talking about maybe moving.
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't know what that.
Who's that, Suzanne?
yeah.
Oh,
She's having
moving
a
out
very
of
hard
East
time
Hampton?
getting a job she wants here, and she might move out of state to look for a job elsewhere.
Yeah, it's hard,
You know,
yeah,
It is, and she's young and she needs a job.
yeah.
Yeah. The,
Okay.
Old people need
What-
jobs too.
Not if you're retired.
yeah. Adele, what
We
you,
might need them, but we don't.
what you said sounds all very good to me.
Okay,
And if you could do that, it would be helpful.
okay.
I'm, if we have a decision on that one, I did come up with a little bit of an item here. I did have an idea that we possibly could begin a discussion of what we think our goals are for 2017. And I wrote down a couple before, but let me just tell you that last year's goals that I had in my head is that we had the plant inventory for Minister Schoolhouse Pond as a piece of work that we needed to do. We knew that we needed to do something on a PRB concept for Salt Pond. We knew that we had a Eastham Orleans municipal water supply connection issue that we knew was there. And we also knew that we had Park Street runoff, stormwater runoff, as a thing that we needed to do. That was basically four things in the back of my mind, not that we didn't have other things to do. Now, for coming up for next year, I see us continuing to pursue a PRB for Salt Pond and continuing to upgrade the septic system at the National Seashore. And we've talked about that. Let's see. I wrote down nitrogen discharge reduction into Town Cove, connection with Orleans wastewater sewer. We've already talked about that a little bit. Not that I'm saying that's happening, but I see it as an issue that we need to be knowing what's happening there to see if what's happened makes sense. And we also got to do the Minister Schoolhouse pond plant survey is just four things that are in our background. I think largely next year is going to be guided by the discussions of the TMD 3 and 4, the Technical Manual 3 and 4. In other words, what we're doing in South Pond and Salt Pond and what we're doing down in Town Cove. Because we got to do our due diligence there to be a responsible town and moving forward as to doing things that we can do and helping clean up the situation.
Yeah, I think these are interesting, Charles, but I think some of what Jeff was saying is he was always also thinking of goals for the committee in terms of work that the committee would be doing and setting those kinds of goals. And maybe this particular project is one place to start with the idea of the committee becoming more educated as to what we're going to have to need to face in wastewater, helping to educate the public on that by our public discussions of it here, and maybe even, I haven't given this a lot of thought. You may find as we go through and research issues that we're also able to put together a little bibliography. Things, something, a person in town who's really interested in learning more about this is something they could look at. So it begins to provide some sort of base, because, we're going to be facing a lot of work over the next 5 years. And I think if we're going to, have a meaningful part in that, we have to understand what it is we're doing. So maybe it's those kind of goals. I don't know. I have another sort of off-the-wall idea. I was thinking that Phase 1 should be finished in May, based on the schedule that's on their website. That's when they'll they're pretty, except for curb stops, the north part of town is pretty much finished. Curb stops is all they've got left to go, but Phase 1, they've got to do some more piping on that other side of Route 6, and then they'll go back, not Phase 1, the southern part, they got to do stuff on the other side of Route 6, and then they're going to go back and pave Route 6, which will be fun. We'll go through what we went through in the fall, except it'll be further south.
I got the impression also that some of the major paved roads in Eastham, not just Route 6, but will be repaved. Do you understand that as well? And that was a
I hadn't seen anything
Which
about
ones, you mean,
that.
like Nauset Road or?
That's right. I'm thinking Herringbrook and
I
Somerset
hadn't-
and Kingsbury.
I don't know, because-
Because they are rough, especially
Oh,
Herringbrook.
I
yeah?
think the reason they're worried about 6 is because people go fast,
Yeah.
and they don't
We
want
should
to
leave it
drive in
rough.
the right lane, so everybody's crowding into the high-speed lane.
Yeah, we were on Kingsbury, which is, the major east-west on that side, and ours is quite
Yours
smooth.
isn't too bad.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I was wondering if maybe it would be appropriate for the committee, to target towards getting something out in May, sort of an overview of what has been accomplished in the construction of the municipal water system. I think, my own personal opinion is I think they've done a great job, considering the time frame when they started and what they had to get done,
Yeah.
and that it's up there, and I think that.
Have there been any articles in the Cape Cod or the Cape Cod Times about that? Pretty
Just
significant.
little bits,
ECM
like,
has finally joined the made unanimous for having some water system.
yeah, and.
We were the
no,
only ones that
Well,
didn't.
I have a good friend who's a writer, a freelance writer for these two papers.
Oh, well, maybe
to her.
you talk to them and have an outline of things they could, like even people ask me about fire hydrants and stuff, and, they don't realize that, and also that, what happens next, and, when Phase 2 will start, and, just to get out more information about what's there, and, what, I think it's early yet, probably the springtime would be better, it'd also be better in that there'll be more people back in town. It'll have more impact, I think, if it comes out in May or June.
Yeah, I was talking about those fire hydrants. I'm about 1,000 feet from the nearest one, but I
That's-
Oh,
was.
really? That's amazing. I thought they were,
Well, there's nothing on my street yet. My street doesn't get
Oh.
anything until Phase 5. I'm supposed to they're supposed to be able to reach my house
but
from Dorset
ultimately
Road.
they will,
No,
Much closer.
they said, somebody told me that the fire hydrant, they did have hoses long enough to get all the way into my house from Dorset
Yeah,
Road,
within
but that's a long way.
1,000 feet is considered water coverage. There is a map.
No, I know what
on,
they all are.
On the water project, well, there's one called, since I get asked these questions, I have to go look at, there's a map called Phase 1A and 1B Fire Protection Area Map on the site, the municipal water system under maps. And it shows, oh, it's up there, okay. I
Okay.
can probably
Those are the
reduce
hydrants,
this a
Adele?
little. Those are the hydrants, and everything in purple is considered to have fire water protection.
Go away.
the little round bulges then
Yeah,
are,
yes.
those
Yeah,
are
those are all
Those are
hydrants.
yes.
Wow.
And as the legend
Is this
says,
the highway here? Where's the-
no, that's the pipe, those are the mains.
Yeah, but there's a pipe that runs next to the highway.
Yeah, so that's
Right
probably
under. I
along the
think that's
highway
right,
there,
Scott.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Route
the
This
pipe.
is
6.
Nauset Road, right?
Right,
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and that's Old Orchard coming out.
Right.
So my house is up here someplace, about there, about as far from there as there.
well,
But they
if
said if I'm 1,000 feet from these.
if you're in the
hydrants,
purple, that's what the legend says.
Hmm.
Everything
Wait a
it-
second, I might not be.
Everything in purple, all right, I can blow it up for you.
Yeah, I
can
might not be
relay
in
it.
purple.
We have lots
Due
of
to
trucks
the
in
magic
town.
of,
I just lost a little of my confidence.
well, maybe they can get an extension.
Keep going, you gotta go. Okay, wait a second, it's getting kind of blurry.
Sorry, that's the best I can do.
Now this will greatly improve it.
Oh, that's much better, much better. Okay, yeah, that's my house right there.
So you're covered.
I'm 2 spots away from not being close enough.
You're lucky you're covered.
Scott, in the public meeting, I heard them say that basically the fire department okays the final sighting of all the hydrants.
Yeah.
The engineers go to them and,
Well, I knew they weren't, I'm surprised these people haven't got, well, well, I guess they haven't, I guess, we're pretty close to where the well is, so that's why they've got us on phase 5. They're not gonna give us water any sooner than they have to, because we've got good water coming out of our well, I guess, unless you put your own well, which people
no,
do.
makes sense, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I guess they had to, they had to do some phases. But they are, like, you couldn't swear to it, but looking at what they now call Phase 2, which is, it's got letters like 1A and B, so it's more than 2 point. I think there's more in that phase than there was originally in what was called Phase 2.
It looks like they've been moving things
So the
up a little
things
bit.
seem to be moving.
Well, they were kind of 2 years apart, I think, originally, right?
Yeah,
And having phase 6 would mean the last people getting the water, the last people getting the water are people out here someplace in the
Yeah.
seashore.
yeah.
We get it in 10 years after the first people, but
Right.
I think it looks like maybe we're squeezing it up or something.
Yeah,
No,
well, I
that
think
makes
they're
sense,
moving more quickly.
because they are not, they have more money to spend than they need, basically,
Who does?
the engineers. So the money has been authorized to, but they'd just be able to pull it up from what they plan to do in Phase 2 into Phase 1. If contractors are available and you have the authority to spend money, then, yeah, so you could shift some things around. And they have to do some shifting all the time just because of weather and shipments of materials and things like
As
that.
Adele said earlier, I think they're doing a very good job considering how much they're doing,
Yeah.
how much they have to do.
Yeah, no, I do. Can we do the minutes and then go home? Sure.
Oh, yeah. Really, we got a minute left or so.
Yes, yes, you did. Adele, Suzanne's last name does not have a T at the end of it.
I didn't think it did, but I must have made a mistake earlier.
I-
I looked back at earlier minutes and it added that way.
Brian, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
T. I did-
No
I-
T, no
I-
T. I checked and I went back and so it's no T. That's all that I had for a comment.
I sort of noticed that, but I didn't.
I move we approve the minutes as
And I
presented.
second.
We just
Second.
sell it.
Change
And
that
just-
they
Yeah.
cited.
Okay,
With
any
the spelling
discussion?
corrected.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 6, 4, none against, okay. January the 10th, good. So, well, if hearing no other discussion, do we have a movement to adjourn?
Oh, I so moved.
So moved,
Second that.
seconded.
We're all,
Yeah, you were ready when we started, I think.
well, you have
All
a hard
right, so
time.
those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
I
All right, so
think on the library board meeting.
6, 7,
Library board?
I was on the library board.